Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, once again joined by Zepsi. We both do some contract work for the HBAR Foundation, but we don't do these weekly updates in any official capacity or just coming to you personally to give you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. Welcome back, Zep. It's been a while. How have you been?
Very well. Yeah, I've been in hiding. I've been very active on Twitter, but very inactive on the show. So I'm very happy to be back.
Y-
But I'm reporting to you live from Italy. So I'm now living in Italy for the next couple of months. So going to be out here.
You and Rob Allen jet setting all over the place.
Yeah. I need to follow his footsteps a bit more on the intellectual front. I can follow the footsteps on a plane, but I need to catch up with the other stuff, I'm sure.
There you go. There you go. All right. So before we get started, I do want to say, as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, Zev. So the first thing that I want to get into is Calaxy. We covered them a bit last week. They were featured on CNBC, of course, showing off their application as well as a new feature they have, which allows them to transfer cryptocurrency as easily as a text. Now, this caught the attention of Jeremy Allaire. He is the CEO of Circle because they used USDC built on Hedera. And of course, Circle is the issuer of USDC. This is exactly what I think we're going to see going forward is both industry players as well as people in other industries are going to take a look at what's going on and what's being kind of trumpeted by applications that are built on Hedera. So Calaxy and Karate Combat and Atma.io, they're going to look at these things and they're going to say, hey, there's some real value being built here. How are they doing it? And the answer is going to be Hedera. Now, Zeb, you're pretty close to the Calaxy team. What are your thoughts on what we're seeing coming out of Calaxy?
I'm really excited about this idea of the social wallets. At the very heart of every Web3 ecosystem, every Web3 network is the wallet. That's how you interact with applications. But now if you combine that with a sort of social media platform like Calaxy, this Web3 version of Cameo or OnlyFans or Twitter, however you want to look at it, you can make that wallet that much more interactive so that you've got a pre-existing user base, which is now multi-chain, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polygon, and so on and so forth. So all these people can sit and talk and interact in a town hall-like environment, whatever cryptocurrency they support. But now they can also bring in their NFTs, bring in their own cryptocurrencies, and then send that as easily as a DM. So you've got a social house, a social hub, and then within that social hub, you now have a decentralized currency depending on what network you're operating within. So it's really turbocharging that social experience, really turbocharging that web wallet experience, that Web3 wallet experience. And of course, whilst the other cryptocurrencies are able to transact, you've got Bitcoin, Ethereum, like I said, the main USDC, which is underpinning that, is the Hedera ledger, Hedera USDC. And of course, most people, if they're getting, a payment for, say, you've gone to a cafe or you've gone out with your friends, you're not really going to want to get an asset that fluctuates in value sent to you as a repayment. You're going to get that USDC back or that USD back. And so I think, the vast majority of transactions that will be used by this, regardless of what chain people are on, will be the USDC. So I'm really excited to see that get more energy. Of course, the team, the leadership, the CEO at Circle, the director at Circle, both publicly acknowledging that, both seeing immense value within USDC on Calaxy. And that's really exciting for me, just to get that credibility, I think, and to have Calaxy pioneering that. But we've also had historically, I think our relationship with USDC, we haven't had as much volume as we'd like on it, perhaps. We haven't had that ease of integration for other Web3 wallets or applications like SourceSwap, that liquidity that we'd wanted. So hopefully this is sort of opening up that room for conversation. And I know it is because the foundation have actually got a call with Circle on the weekend after Thanksgiving with the director there. So hopefully there'll be new conversations coming in here. Hopefully new marketing experiences. So this will give, renewed energy into the retail ecosystem. And then of course we've got the institutional side with the likes of Flutterwave. So I'd like to think these two new developments really are going to strengthen and bolster those relationships. And we're going to have renewed excitement from Circle coming to our ecosystem. So hats off to Calaxy there. Very excited for the future of the Calaxy app. And this is a next step in their evolution for sure.
Yeah, their team is hitting all on all cylinders, that's for sure. All right, so the next thing I want to get into is since the last time you were on Zep, Rob Allen has taken on a new role. He's moving back to the Hedera Governing Council with FPOS, but we had some great questions come from the community this week, and Rob had some great responses. So let's check it out. Hey, Rob, welcome back. How's your week going?
Hey, Brandon. Yeah, another busy week in the Hedera ecosystem.
It always is. We're going to jump right into it. We've been getting some really good questions, and we have a few of them to get through today. The first one comes from Eduardo, who asked, is Rob leaving the Hashgraph Association, which we confirmed last week? And he goes on to say that would be a huge loss. Rob, so how did this transition go, and can you put Eduardo's mind at ease here?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Eduardo, and thanks for the interest. I haven't fallen very far from the tree. In fact, the Hedera tree has nourished me and kept my interest for many years now. Like I said last week, I've kind of come full circle back to FPOS. But the time I had at the Hashgraph Association was well spent. We set up the Hashgraph Enterprise Program. We transitioned out of the former Enterprise Accelerator Program that was being run under the auspices of CorpCom, the Corporate Utilization Committee, into a more operational, scalable model that aligns with the Hashgraph Innovation Program. We onboarded many enterprises, some governing councils, some others. And the innovation program is running as a well-established model. And so the handover was actually done quite easily. The Hashgraph Innovation Program already had an enterprise tier. We just added kind of governing council, Fortune 20 style projects into there with the additional governance and kind of rigor required for that sort of project. But yeah, full handover was done. We hired some great senior project managers to oversee those projects. We've got a strong pipeline lined up, being taken through the advisory and onboarding process. So I felt very, very confident that it was in very good hands with THA prior to me moving to Australian Payments Plus, where I now have my new role. Leading on strategy for future payment systems and Web3 across the whole of Australia. So I think it's been a really seamless transition, and I feel like I'm back home, and there's a job to be done, job to be finished, and my first couple of weeks have really been busy.
And I'm sure we're going to see some great things in your new role. So next up, we have one from Peter who said, question for Rob, where does he get all his energy? He's Hedera's Superman with all the roles that he plays. So how do you successfully spin all these plates, Rob?
It is a superpower, I think. Spinning lots of plates is something that I've always done. Life's too short, and I hate missing out on opportunities. So one has to kind of learn to be able to spin a lot of plates. I'm very lucky. I've got a very supportive family. I get up very early. I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, down the gym, get my day off to a great start. Very careful about nutrition and feeding the body. And then just a curious engineering mentality where, I like all things to work efficiently and enable myself to add value where I can be efficient and optimal and don't bother with things that I can't be. So I only like to add value. And then by midnight, I kind of switch off. So don't book any calls with me after midnight, but pretty much there up until then. One of the benefits of kind of resetting with the Australian Payments Plus role is that I don't have to do all the evening calls with Europe. But there still seem to be quite a lot of ecosystem calls in my diary in the evenings. So yeah, it's just energy drawn from proper maintenance of one's body and life, and an ongoing curiosity and excitement about this emerging space, which delights and surprises me every day.
Well, 18, 19-hour days, Rob. That's pretty impressive. And I'm spinning a few plates myself,
You
so
are,
this is
yeah.
some great advice that I'm going to take myself. All right, so next up we have Reventh87 who asks, what do you honestly think of the slogan, all substance, no hype? Within the context of marketing slash hype, every brand has hype slash marketing department despite having substance. How do you justify that when we have other blockchains like Solana with arguably relatively lesser tech, but with wider adoption and recognition, despite being released to the market around the same time of Hedera? Now, full disclosure, when I was a community member, probably about 4 years ago, I actually coined the
That's right.
phrase all substance, no hype.
Yeah.
Now, I was just showing that Hedera at the time, they were focused on just building the network, making sure that base layer was in place. So all these great applications that we now see starting to get built on Hedera, it was possible. But, and they weren't shouting it from the rooftops. But of course, there is a time and place where we do have to make sure everybody knows that these tools are here for them to use. But what are your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, it served its purpose at the time. And when you coined that phrase, it was really useful to differentiate the Hedera ecosystem and what we were doing and building from all of the empty hype that was coming from many of the other protocols and organizations in this space. I think it's morphed into something that is slightly different. It's still a valid term. It kind of sets the North Star for Hedera. The fact that we only really focus on being builders, and we trust and believe in the technology in a way that has true substance. We see this now. I mean, 4 years ago, we didn't have these daily announcements of these massive products and organizations and use cases coming out. That's true substance. We knew that then. I think most of us knew that then. But we've been more than, our belief has been more than rewarded. So do we need to hype it? No. Do we need to market it? Absolutely. We should be shouting from the rooftops on every single one of these great use cases, because pretty much everyone is far greater than the rest of the ecosystem. The Web3 ecosystem doesn't have the bank socials, it doesn't have the Calaxys, it doesn't have the Atmas, and we should really be celebrating those. Celebration isn't hype. Hype is groundless and empty. Marketing and amplification is absolutely legitimate. And the community has a role to play in this, of course. Amplification across all of the social networks is the job of the community. It's not necessarily just the job of marketing. Providing the materials and then having the advocates and the champions and the HBARbarians taking it forward, taking it into other communities, taking it into other sectors, taking it into their own industries. That's where we really need to amplify this message. That's not hype. That's just understanding that we have the best technology and we have the best use cases in this space. Now, from a core marketing and governing council perspective, we have never shilled our coin. We've never mentioned HBAR. It's not necessarily. It's something that we just don't do. Because we are focused on utility, because we are focused on the network being a network for utility, for building on top of it. So the hype and the shilling will never ever come out of Hedera and out of that stable. But we don't have to. We don't have. We've got some amazing use cases. I mean, just Neuron and Flutterwave and the things that we've seen out of Shinhan Bank and the Stablecoin Studio, not to mention the Guardian. We're just going into COP28 in the next couple of weeks. The amount of announcements that will be coming out of that side of things, we've probably not heard a lot of sustainability use cases in the last couple of months as we build up to COP28. Just prepare yourself for many announcements on that side. And everyone in the community has a role to play in amplifying this and making sure that the widest possible audience get to hear what we are doing in the Hedera ecosystem and be proud of it. I mean, I'm super proud of this every single day when I see these things that are being built on our network. So that's not hype; it's all substance.
That's all fair. All right. So next up, we have Hassan who says, question for Rob. The entire crypto space is missing one thing, in my opinion, with its tech, plus the credibility of its founders, plus the governing council and a growing ecosystem. Hedera is the only network well positioned to set up this credibility. Rob, do you know whether Hedera is planning on setting up an ethics committee? Thanks.
That's a great question. The founders set an ethical North Star right at the beginning. And I think Hedera has largely stayed to that truly ethical course. We don't have an ethics committee in the governing council, and we have many committees, as we know. I mean, ethics runs deep, actually, through all of those as a golden thread, if you like. The original path, ethical path that was we were set on, does permeate all that we do at the governing council. However, ethics committees actually serve a purpose. In healthcare, in academia, many sectors, ethics committees are there to ensure the standards are maintained, the ethical standards of the organization are maintained. And they're there to maybe consider quite complex solutions or complex situations and to ensure that the organization maintains that course. So I think it's a great question, and I'm going to raise it at the next governing council meeting to see what the council and the Hedera LLC think about that. So thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, I think that ethics North Star that you mentioned, that is another differentiator for Hedera. Next up, we have Red Velvet 5532, who says, hey, Brandon, can you ask Rob how people who, like me, of a non-technical background, I work in medicine, can get into Hedera development as an enthusiast, not for employment purposes, but more like pastime development? What educational resources are most useful, like React, Java, etc.?
Oh, well, I mean, this is a rabbit hole, of course.
Yeah.
And when one starts, it's quite difficult to pull out. But if you're just a hobbyist developer, wannabe developer, or want to just dip your toe in the water of this, Hedera is one of the best, if not the best, decentralized networks because we have these APIs. So you can actually learn coding in a variety of languages and utilize the Hedera consensus service, the token service, without being a full Web3 hardcore developer. So you can start quite easily. So pick your language of choice, Java, JavaScript, or many of the others. Maybe do some tutorials and then leap into the Hedera GitHub, get into Discord, the Hedera Discord, and ask questions. Right, just be curious, be interested in what to do. Pick a small project that interests you, and then start there. If you don't want to go all the way to learning a new programming language, then there's some excellent no-code tools. So JoGet is a low-code, no-code platform that allows you to do those things. Our own Milan from the HBAR Foundry has done a lot of work in the no-code space. So I'm sure if you reach out to him, he'll be very generous with his time to kind of put you on the right track. So I think that's probably a really good place to start. And you can do, sort of automation type activities. You could even potentially, I don't know where you work, but if you have ServiceNow in your organization, then ServiceNow and its business process flows allow for Hedera integrations. So maybe that's something that you could do if you're, within your organization, you have access to those tools. So there's lots of ways of getting started. But I think probably the no-code path might be the best one to start with, unless you've got a propensity to learning, some Java, and then you can really get to grips with some great stuff. Of course, if you wanted to go the full Web3 route, then you could start learning Solidity and plenty of tutorials out there. In fact, there was a very good blog by Ed just yesterday or 2 days ago about the smart contract service. So get to immerse yourself in full Web3 Solidity development as well, if that's your thing. But plenty of different angles to get started.
Sure. If you didn't bring up the node codes and everything that Milan is doing, I was certainly going to bring it up. Hedera Dev on X or Twitter, if you want to look him up, and join the HBAR Foundry. That's another great resource of community enthusiasts that are building all throughout the space, both as traditional developers as well as in these no-code ways as well. So, okay, the final one we have is from sandwich.hbar, who asked, what are the hurdles holding back deploying community nodes? Is it a technical issue or an organizational one?
I don't think there's a hurdle. I think that there's a plan. We have our path to decentralization, which is a promise, to decentralize. There's no intent to always be a close-knit, permissioned network of governing council nodes. So the community node phase is coming. There are a few dependencies prior to getting there. Some are technical. The tooling needs to be there in order to manage a node. So a third party, a non-governing council member needs to be able to stand up and manage a node. That also requires some kind of technical changes in the code base. So those are all things that are in the roadmap or being developed right now. Then there's I don't think it's an organizational hurdle, but there's certainly a commercial one. In order for community nodes to be viable, we need sufficient TPS on the network, which generates sufficient revenue, which will support the growth of the network. It's a very organic thing, and it's by design. So as we know, we've got 2,500 transactions a second at the moment. As that goes up, to closer to 5 or 7 or 10, that will support more and more nodes. And then we have, a future that includes sharding as well. So there are a number of different kind of gates that we need to go through, both technically and growth-wise, in order to support a growing network in a sustainable way over 100 years. So the community shouldn't be too concerned. They don't have community nodes now. Remember, community nodes are permission nodes still. They're not permissionless. Permissionless is the full decentralization kind of stage beyond that. So there is this anticipation that community nodes will be rolled out slowly with with groups of trusted third parties hosting those nodes, and then growing to the order of hundreds, maybe even more. But that will take time, and it's an organic thing. It's nothing to be worried about. It's coming, but it may come sooner than we expect, or it may come a bit later, depending on the growth of the network. That said, with the number of projects that we're expecting to come onto the mainnet in the next year or so, I think that absolutely supports that hypothesis that it's within that period of time.
Well, Rob, as always, some great responses. We've been getting some great questions from the community, so thank you guys so much for doing that. Keep dropping them down there in the comments. We're building up our queue, so we might not be able to get to every one every week, but we try to work through them on a regular basis. But Rob, as always, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Brandon. Take care.
All right, Zep, so you heard Rob talk about COP28, and COP28 is a UN meeting, an initiative where all governments get together from around the world, and they work on environmental problems and how to solve those problems. Now, Hedera is going to have a big footprint at COP28. We know Wes is going to be very active there. I also saw that Carbon-Based, that's a registry that's going to be completely built on DLT, and the DLT they chose is Hedera, has been put on the COP28 shortlist, and that's a really big step for them. But we have all kinds of stuff going on in our ReFi ecosystem. Do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, so we've, like you said, there's going to be a lot in the run up to COP28. There's a lot of planning going on, pre-planning, events that the foundation are going to be at, but also announcements and other very exciting news to come. But last week we saw that Jonathan Rakoff had contributed to a white paper with another one of these policy advocacy groups within the world of climate and the intersection with Web3 and DLT and carbon markets as a whole. And so the Carbon Business Council, who created this new white paper, consists of 100 plus carbon management leaders and innovators who, go to the lawmakers, go to the energy industry and beyond to sort of advocate for the responsible use of technologies like DLTs, the ability to scale the carbon markets and the carbon industry as a whole. And so this isn't the first time that we've been engaging here to engage with policymakers is absolutely vital for a nascent industry like DLT, which has had its brand image failures with the likes of FTX and so on, to show these policymakers that it isn't just crypto. This is real world application like DLT, like the Hedera Guardian, that can be used to solve real world issues like a lack of trust in the carbon markets. And so if we can go to these policymakers like Jonathan's doing, we've gone to public consultations, we've been writing white papers, we've been collaborating with research committees, we've been working with research institutions like the DLT Science Foundation, and far beyond. We are going at the grassroots with this nascent breakthrough technology to the people who can shape the direction of the law, of the policy, and who really gets to use this technology. And so this was just another instance of that with the Carbon Business Council. And I have no doubt that this is going to be another way of getting the Hedera Guardian in the door with the top policymakers in the US in particular, but also further beyond as that regulation starts to come in.
Well covered. And Zeb, do you have any more thoughts on COP28?
This is a chance for the foundation and its partners within the Hedera Guardian ecosystem to showcase the Hedera Guardian as the best tech for modernizing and bringing greater trust to the carbon markets so that the institutions that are all over COP28 can now safely enter these carbon markets at scale. There's been a lot of bad press on carbon credits over the past year. The Guardian newspaper, not to be confused with the Hedera Guardian, came out with a publication saying, I think, 80% of the carbon credits in certain forests were redundant. And so that made sort of shockwaves through the industry saying, these carbon credits being created at a great expense or sold at a great expense without any real value being transmitted by them. And so that put off a lot of the policymakers who are going to be at COP28, but now a real solution is here. Digital measuring, reporting and verification and all of the methodologies that underpin that are part of the Guardian, the Hedera Guardian, which is now the biggest open source repository of these environmental methodologies in the world. So that's a flex in itself, but we're going to have showcases, we're going to have Envision there, we're going to have Carbon-Base there, we're going to have lots and lots of different ecosystem partners and lots of different announcements, lots of different social coverage, lots of different events. So I think it's going to be a very exciting week for the HBAR variants and definitely one to be hyper-focused on, hyper-engaged with for the next 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, Zep, and COP28 is going to be starting mid next week, so we're going to keep a really close eye on that. So now we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to get into the consumer engagement and sporting world with Sphera World. I caught up with Jesse. He's their head of product, and he had some really interesting things to say. So listen in. All right, Jesse, to kick this off, can you give us a recap of what Sphera World is and what you're trying to accomplish with the business?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, at its core, Sphera World is a way for fans to connect with their favorite brands, athletes, clubs, and engage with the sports that they love. And, we're leveraging the power of blockchain technology to make this a very exciting proposition that's also future-proofed and provides some pretty unique exclusive items and things like that they can get access to from, some of their favorite clubs. So what we're aiming to build is obviously a marketplace at its core. So we'll have the marketplace that allows the trading and the distribution and sale of the digital assets. But we're also looking to work alongside clubs and certain athletes to do in real life activations as well. So, participating in loyalty incentives and rewards where if you go to a certain amount of games, we can see that, you can log it, check in whilst you're at the game and get access to certain rewards or different prizes that are provided by the club. One of the other aspects that we're quite excited about and looking into as well is branching into the GameFi arena and looking at doing a fantasy league for obviously the teams that we work with, and then also a sports prediction market. With the token being at the core of how these parts of the infrastructure and the ecosystem work, it's something that we're very confident we can make and basically use to onboard multiple users into the Hedera ecosystem. One of the real I would say, benefits of Sphera and what we're doing as a business is the partnerships that we have. The strength of the partnerships are incredible, especially for the region that we're targeting. Looking at the MENA region as kind of like the first point of operation for the business, and then obviously open to expanding globally. But we've got the partnerships to make sure we get the reach, the exposure, and the awareness that we're after for that region. Quora is one of our key partners in that sense. They are one of the largest sports media distribution agencies online in the whole region. I think it's the number 11th biggest website in Morocco, number 1 for sports category. And they're getting anywhere upwards of 30 million unique visitors to their site every month. And yeah, this is a very core partnership to us. So, some of the equity holders in Sphera are some of the founding members of that website as well. So when it comes to being able to get eyes on the project and really pushing the reach of what we're trying to achieve with the clubs and the brands that we're working with, we've got the vehicle to do it. One thing that is, I think, very important, not only for us, but just for the ecosystem to evolve, is for us to have a very strong focus on user experience and the user interface design, and just making sure that the common friction and pain points that we see in Web3 and onboarding people are genuinely met and at the absolute core of what we're trying to deliver and build. So yeah, one focus for us is certainly trying to get Web2 native audiences that maybe have never interacted with crypto or blockchain involved in this industry and this ecosystem, and using applications that feel dynamic and fluid to them, things that they understand, certain onboarding processes that they understand as well. And just making that a much more exciting proposition for them.
Yeah, and consumer engagement really seems like it's going to be one of the premier use cases throughout all of Web3. So it seems like you're working in a good vertical. So I've seen some posts in social media recently about your partnership with Headstarter, and it sounds really interesting. Now, that team is great, so you have a good partner in Headstarter, but what should we be excited to see it come out of Sphera in the short term?
Definitely. Yeah. So like I spoke about the strengths of the partnership with Quora, but as I said, yeah, we've got a big group of partners, both on the Web2 side and the Web3. And yeah, as you said, the guys at Headstarter are great. They've been an amazing support for us trying to get this project off the ground and, make the Hedera community aware of what we're doing. The next real big step, I guess, in our plans and in our roadmap is to do an initial NFT offering alongside Headstarter. So we're going to be releasing digital collectibles that can be burnt or used to redeem a certain amount of tokens at a future date, and basically give you, the best way to put it, I guess, is a booster pack of all the things that you'll need to actually engage and interact with the product once we release it. INO is next on the cards with Headstarter, and then obviously doing a lot of engagement activities with our community, just building our reach. It's going to be going into the holiday weeks, I guess, in a few weeks' time. So definitely in the new year, after everything is back up and running, we're looking to hit the ground hard. And yeah, we'll be releasing our product hopefully late January, early February for our early community to participate in and take a look at. And then yeah, looking to do a full launch campaign with some very exciting figures in the sports space throughout Q1.
So, Jesse, you've mentioned your token a couple times. You mentioned it when we led off, and you also mentioned it as something you might get later on for the NFTs that you create. Can you tell us a little bit more about your token?
Yeah, definitely. So the token is called SPT, and it is going to be basically the core infrastructure token or utility token for the entire platform that we're building. So it's going to have a total supply of 200 million distributed over a 10-year emission cycle. And what we're aiming to do, and what is very important, I think, for crypto projects that have a token in part of its ecosystem, is to make sure we have deflationary models in place that don't just rely on us building the user base, which is something we want to do. With 30 million active users in Quora as a marketing partner and a strong core partner for our business, we think we can hit those numbers. 15,000, 50,000 active users are some of the key target KPIs that we've got coming up. But definitely in terms of that early stage, and then just throughout the process, having those deflationary systems in place that allow us to essentially get to a point where, the token is deflating and we have less supply being released each year on year than is getting burned throughout the ecosystem. So one of the ways that I spoke about prior that this token is kind of core to is the GameFi aspect. So looking at the Fantasy League, doing specific NFT collections or drops that basically require the SPT token to purchase. And then also having it as a part of the fee system involved in that as well. So a percentage of all fees throughout any part of our platform will go towards burning the token supply as well. And one of the major case studies that we've kind of done the most research on at this stage is the sports predictions market, and looking at basically SPT being the vehicle for you to get access to those mini games where you can earn, additional tokens, you can earn NFTs, collectibles, access to IRL events as well. That basic part of the ecosystem is something that could drive anywhere up to 20 to 30% of our token supply being burnt over a 10-year period, with a 15,000 active user base. So, we've got our numbers. We know basically what we need to do to make sure that the token has the best shot of success. Obviously, it's an open market, so we can't predict it. We can't guarantee a certain price for that asset, but definitely we do believe we've got the systems in place to make sure that it functions. One, that it is a valuable part of the ecosystem and not just something that's bolted on as an afterthought. And three, has the systems in place to make sure that over a longer period of time, it will be deflationary. And as our platform grows, the actual amount of tokens in circulation.
Well, it sounds like you have the right balance of utility, real value on your platform, and a focus on the tokenomics as well. Now, of course, this is a Hedera-focused show, so I want to ask, why did you choose to build on Hedera?
Yeah, there was a few reasons. I think at its core, if we look at the technical reason, it's fast, it's efficient, and it's reliable. And at scale, it's something that really works. And I think one of the things that Hedera does best out of any blockchain or project in the industry is its ability to create really, really good enterprise partnerships. The governing council of Hedera is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest governing council in the entire space. And just knowing that those brands and those technology companies trust and have faith in Hedera as a solution that could scale to, potentially a user base of that size and scale for us and what we want to achieve in the consumer market. We needed to go with a blockchain basically that had those qualities in place, because if this does become, what we think it will be, which is a very big consumer application that is kind of in between Web3 and Web2, acting as that bridge and that vehicle for sports fans and audiences. We need that reliability. We need that scalability. Obviously, cost as well. If we're having people transferring and trading, possibly trading cards or digital collectibles that are worth $1, $2, which doesn't make sense from a cost perspective for us to be on Ethereum or something like that, where potentially the cost of your transaction could be more than the asset you're trying to trade. Those are the two key core technical reasons, I guess, we chose Hedera. And the other one is just how welcoming the community's been, right? Both on the actual, retail or community side, and then also with other businesses, projects, and the people within the Hedera network and ecosystem. So we're grant funded by the Hashgraph Association, and we've got a great relationship with those guys, and our CEO at Deca 4, which is kind of the company that incubated Sphera and got it off the ground, is very close with the Hedera team. So I think having that relationship and being able to build in direct collaboration with the network itself is something that we just wouldn't be able to achieve or get on any other chain.
Well, thank you for choosing Hedera. All right, now let's put our futurist hats on. What's on the horizon? What's the future hold for Sphera and the sporting and consumer engagement space in general there in the Middle East?
Absolutely. So I think in the Middle East, not only do we have the opportunity of being able to dominate that market share because of our marketing partners with Kura and the user base we have there, I think the Middle East and the MENA region specifically is just more open to technology and technological innovation. So when it comes to running these pilot programs or these tests, being able to do something like this with, for instance, a Man United or an Arsenal is going to be very, very challenging. But the teams that obviously are growing here in the MENA region, specifically in Saudi Arabia, and the opportunity that's there, it's going to be a lot easier to showcase Sphera as a proposition. And I think also some of the challenges that are faced, especially by the Saudi League. I mean, they've got all of the money in the world, right? And we've seen all of the big transfers that they've made. We've got Ronaldo. We've got all of these huge names and players in that league now, which is amazing for us as a business to see that growth. But one thing that they're struggling with, not necessarily the higher teams, but certainly lower down in that RSL league, is viewership and attendance, getting fans to the stadium, getting them engaged and excited about the sport. So what we see ourselves as is a platform, a tool, and something that clubs and brands can use to create that incentivization and that engagement. So what we want to do eventually, if things line up and we do have access to the right networks to make this happen, is that we become, a preferred partner of a specific league, or, we align ourselves with some very, very big big brands in the MENA region, which we're talking to at the moment, to provide this service, to provide a way where these fans can get access to brand collateral, digital assets, collectibles, but also just, access to loyalty programs and the opportunity to get, an in-depth feel and connection with your club and the athletes that play with that club is where we see ourselves. And I think the medium for this eventually is going to be Web3. I think the benefits of blockchain, the benefits of NFT technology at its core lend themselves to being able to provide a more immersive and a more close experience with your fans, And I'll give an example of that, right? So for instance, if you're a fan and you're going to every single game, there's ways to track this over time, but they're not efficient. It takes some time. There's a lot of manual processes to work out who are the true brand champions, the ones that are pushing this club and engaging with us the most. With blockchain and with NFTs, you can easily see that. You have the record. You can pull up the wallet addresses of the people that have interacted with your brand the most and provide additional incentives and rewards to them. So one of the unique experiences that we're looking at is the ability for fans to show up to the stadium. They can check in, they get an NFT, and they can collect basically a certain amount throughout the season. Say, for instance, they didn't miss a game. They went to every single game that season. They could be entered into a prize raffle for a season ticket for the next season, right? And just providing the solution and looking at ourselves as a solution orientated business that is offering this service to clubs and brands, I think is what's going to provide us with the best chance at, I would say, commercial success and really being able to scale this business. So that's kind of, where our focus is. Obviously, let's release the beta of the product in hopefully January, February. And after that, we'll be looking at basically building those relationships with the clubs and the leagues that are out here in the MENA region.
Well, it seems like you're on the right track. Jesse, thank you so much for swinging on today. Good luck, and thank you for choosing Hedera.
No problem. Yeah, appreciate your time. Thanks, Brandon.
So I think Sphera World is going to garner a lot of attention for the Hedera ecosystem. And there's somebody else who's been getting a lot of attention, and it's a new community member. At least it's a new community member for me. I know he's been around for a while, but he's just gotten really vocal, and that's Tatsuaki Okamoto. Now, that is not the cryptographer who is still around. He's using that as a pseudonym, but he's not hiding who he is. He's really engaging with potential council members. I think he's putting together a Twitter space just next week with some engineers from SpaceX. I just love the energy that this guy is bringing. Now, of course, we've had people bring a lot of energy in the past and they can kind of flame out, but I don't think that's what we're going to see here. And because of that, I'm going to try to get an interview with him. I'm not sure if it's going to be next week or the week after, but I just, again, love the energy that he's bringing to the space, and he's going to shake us up a little bit and hopefully bring us in the right direction. But I love to see active community members all around. All right, Zep, so one thing about the Hedera community is we seem to attract really inquisitive people that like to dig into the white papers and get into the data. And we have a new analytics firm that has just launched, and that's Chainspect. And of course, the first thing that they're focusing on is throughput. And that's something that Hedera ends up at the top of the list. So it's catching a lot of attention from the community. So I caught up with one of the founders from Chainspect to give us a little bit more information. So check it out. So Elijah, to start off, can you tell us about Chainspect, its goals, and why you thought it was important to initially focus on network throughput?
Yeah, sure. Chainspect is a blockchain analytics platform that aims to simplify the decision-making process for DApp builders and crypto investors. You can think of it as a coin market cap, but instead focused on technical metrics and not financial ones. As blockchain space matures, we see more and more demand for in-depth analytics of on-chain data. But unfortunately, it's not always easy for end users to get the data and then make sense of it, because the data analytics process can be time extensive and requires a certain level of technical skills. That's why we decided to create Chainspect to enable easy access to the standardized blockchain data for everybody. In the first version of Chainspect, we decided to focus on TPS, because it's one of the most important technical metrics. It indicates the real utilization level of the network, and then it also correlates with the network's ability to scale. This metric is often shared on landing pages of various networks. It's used by blockchain developers to make decisions on which blockchain to build. So it seemed like an ideal metric for an MVP of an analytics platform. Moreover, after doing initial market research, we realized that there were no platforms on the market that would track these metrics in real time. So it seemed like a perfect opportunity for us.
Yeah, I can see on your website it actually shows the latency of how long ago those readings were actually taken. So there's often debate about what a transaction is because platforms invariably want to show high TPS or transactions per second, as you mentioned. I'm sure a big part of your job is setting the standards and verifying network transactions actually meet those standards. Can you explain Chainspect standards and verification methodology in general?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Standardization of calculation method is actually one of the core problems Chainspect is solving. TPS and throughput in general are being heavily used for marketing purposes, so sometimes these metrics are inflated. In our calculation method, as a rule of thumb, we include only transactions with economic value, meaning only ones which have transaction fee paid. System transactions, together with transactions needed to reach consensus, are excluded. So, for example, for Solana, we exclude voting transactions, which are needed to reach consensus between nodes. And for Polkadot, we exclude transactions that set the timestamp. We have explainers on how TPS is being calculated for each chain on Chainspect, visible to everybody. Also, we calculate TPS based on snapshots of the last 100 blocks, and we take these snapshots every 10 minutes. On top of that, I would like to mention that we are not affiliated with any blockchain, and this is absolutely crucial for us to keep Chainspect independent and data unbiased.
Yeah, you have to stay objective. So, what's next for Chainspect? Are you going to continue down the road of focusing on throughput, or do you have other things in your roadmap?
Well, we aim to turn Chainspect into a comprehensive analytics platform where users can get all of the necessary information to evaluate the quality of a blockchain based on. In the next versions, we plan to focus on 4 types of metrics: technicals, community, liquidity, and infrastructure. Technical metrics will include TPS, throughput, level of decentralization, number of active addresses, and so on. Community metrics will revolve around size and engagement level in social media, together with the level of developer activity in GitHub. Liquidity metrics will include TVL, market cap of stablecoins, liquidity health, and other metrics required to understand how much liquidity is available on chain. And last but not least, infrastructure section will focus on available wallets, block explorers, node providers, and other infrastructure tools which are absolutely essential for the blockchain network success.
Well, I've already enjoyed using Chainspect. I can't wait to start using it more in the future. Now, is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
Yeah, we'd like to remind the blockchain community not to forget about doing their own research before investing in any network, irrespective of whether they're investing time or money. And we, on our behalf, will try to make the research process as simple as possible. Another important thing to remember here is that financial and product cycles are quite different, meaning that price does not always reflect the real state of the project. It's especially visible during the crypto winter when prices go down, but many great teams continue to build incredible products.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we've seen within the Hedera ecosystem. Elijah, thank you so much for swinging on today. Thank you for incorporating Hedera, and good luck.
Thank you.
It's great to have, I think, a new site that has a really beautiful UX. It looks great. It's got more traffic, web traffic than real TPS did, and it seems like the data is, more on point. It's constantly being updated, constantly being fed on chain. Whereas real TPS was great, but I think, with Solana and some others, that TPS had frozen, so I wasn't quite sure how, verifiable that data was. So yeah, great to hear from Chainspect there. Great to have another platform showing the true scalability of Hedera against our competitors. But we also last week had another big announcement from Taekion, who are a sort of a Web3 Dropbox, a very, very highly secure way of sending files, images, whatever it might be. At the moment, for institutions, they've worked with some of the biggest, organizations in the world. They tested with the US Department of Defense, United States Energy, and so on and so forth. And they've actually got their own private blockchain, but they're leveraging the public Hedera consensus service for that extra layer of sort of public verification, add that extra layer of sort of trust and transparency without exposing the very mission critical data that they're securing. So it's a very interesting hybrid model between private blockchain and public blockchains. And I'm very excited to see where they take us, given that very early interest from some of the biggest governmental institutions in the world, let's be honest. So I know that starting off with institutions, but they've got a plan to go into more sort of retail, having that sort of Dropbox component, and where, anyone, anywhere will be able to send things immensely securely and have their data secured throughout that. So a very exciting team. They've been about for a while, very strong vision, and another great builder in our ecosystem.
And Dave, the founder of Taekion, has been around for a while within the Hedera ecosystem. I'm going to try to get him on again to go a little bit deeper into what they're doing with these governmental agencies that he's working for. So it's great to see. But with that, let's get into some network analysis. So the big news this week on the network front is that we crossed 30 billion total transactions on the network. There was a couple of days where we dropped down to about 1,200 TPS, but most of the week we've been cruising at just over 2,200 with a max TPS of 7,900. So impressive there. All this while maintaining a 3.5 second time to finality. We had a significant spike in the account creation over the past couple days, which has allowed us to have about 36,000 accounts added to the Hedera mainnet over the past week. Taking a look at the fungible tokens, Wrapped HBAR is in the top spot, followed by Sauce, Energy Trade Token, Xbucks, and Karate. I love to see Xbucks in the mix, as that's the token of the Web3 travel platform Zenny. Now, Shane, the CEO of the HBAR Foundation, discussed Zenny, and from his comments, I think we can expect some pretty great things from them in the new year. For 5 through 10, we have the meme coin Zero, which we discussed last week. We have Dovu, a couple versions of USDC, likely the bridged version and the native version for Hedera. But as always, be wary of popular tokens and double check that the token IDs are correct for the legitimate token. Moving to our NFTs, we have the Saucer Swap version 2 LP position token. There are several Karate Combat themed Karateka tokens. It's good to see them really active. We have Zero Pixels NFT, Shroomies Blade Wallet loyalty card, Hangry Barboons, Road Code access card, and Dead Pixels rounds out the top 10. So Zeb, it's been a little while since we've gotten any of your feedback on NFTs. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I saw two big sales this week actually. A Dead Pixels that was over 20,000 HBAR, and then there was a big one from Hangry Barboons as well. I can't quite remember the figure there, but it was another big sale. So obviously there's renewed interest in NFTs, and that's mirroring what we're seeing with our Hedera token service tokens as well, like Calaxy, Karate. Full disclosure, I own both. But we've seen a lot of energy coming in, renewed energy, and that seems to be going into the NFTs a bit as well. So hopefully that's an upwards trajectory there.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning. I think the table is set for the bull run over the next couple of years now. Not financial advice, but I do think things are set up pretty well. And with that, let's get into some DeFi. Taking a look at DeFi Llama, not including state or liquid staking, the total value locked in the Hedera DeFi ecosystem is still just under $40 million. Saucer Swap holds 36.5 million of that, and HeliSwap holding most of the rest. As mentioned last week, Saucer Swap has now released version 2, and there are 2 pools for each pair. I'm going to focus on the V1 pair for returns unless I see a big discrepancy for version 2. Again, see Saucer Swap's Medium article if you want the full explanation. But now onto the rates. We see 5% on HBAR X, 24% on HBAR Sauce, as well as on HBAR USDC version 1. But we're seeing nearly 75% on HBAR USDC version 2, and 27% on HBAR Karate version 1. Over on HeliSwap, HBAR X is at 4.3%, 91% on HBAR Heli, 16% on HBAR USDC, and a nice 64% on HBAR Karate. Now moving on to the HBAR and crypto markets, Bitcoin continues to edge higher, up 1.5% on the day and nearly 4% on the week. HBAR is up 1.5% on the day, but is flat on the week, holding at 6.3 cents at the time of recording. We broke the month-long uptrend we mentioned last week, so I'm just looking at 5.8 to 6 cents for support and 6.8 cents for resistance. All right, Zep, is there anything else you'd like to pass on before we let you go?
Yeah, so I think, for me is the excitement that I can sort of pass on is what Rob spoke about and what we discussed, which is COP28. We are with the biggest institutions in the world who all need to reach net zero targets. That's why they're all there. And we're bringing them the best solution for adding transparency and trust to these markets so that they can enter and offset their carbon. So no joke, we are bringing them the best tech on a platter, showcased, and we've got our own events there. We've got a lot of networking events we're attending, a lot of high profile meetings, and we've got a lot of announcements. So I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting week for COP28. And then even beyond that, we've got consumer engagement, we saw Sphera World, and then there's some other consumer engagement stuff coming up, which is also super exciting. So all around the ecosystem seems to be picking up again, more announcements to come, and just an exciting, I think, sort of blow off into the new year and I'm sure beyond.
Absolutely. And going back to NFTs, I do want to highlight XP Network. Now, we had them on our Twitter space last week, and what they're going to allow us to do is transfer our NFTs to other networks. So it's going to be able to give us access to things like OpenSea, and it's going to allow other networks to transfer over to us to take advantage of our super low fees and our fast speed. So it's great to see that. I'm actually going to talk to their team next week. So we're going to have an interview with them. We're also going to have a Banking the Bankless space. I think that's going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. So check that out. We also are going to try to get that interview with Tatsuaki Okamoto, or at least that's his pseudonym. And of course, we're going to have Rob back next week for Shark Bites. But that's all we have. We'll see you next week.